Hello, in this video I will make my predictions for the World Cup in Qatar, which starts next Sunday, commenting on each group and how I expect it to finish based entirely on my observations before the tournament. Then I'll offer all the bets I think are worth making, and using the tool I'm using and the rankings I've given, I'll simulate pairings against the streams for the round of 16 and so on. I will predict every single match to the final. Before I start commenting on the group, if this is your first time coming across our video, I'm Svetoslav and I'm part of the betting room team. We are in the business of value betting and winning in the long run by beating the bookmakers, finding mistakes in the odds. In the links in the description you can see our website and more about our services. We also currently have a subscription especially for the World Cup, which I recommend you take advantage of, as we expect to find value even in the biggest tournament. This video is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to do a giveaway of sorts that I think you find interesting. The rules are very simple. You can see them in the description, but I'm going to say them now as well. The idea is that each of you who watches will give your prediction for the tournament, and each correct prediction will get a certain number of points. After the tournament is over, I will come back to this video, and the 3 commentators who have collected the most points will get a free VIP subscription, which is our diamond. That is our best subscription on the site. What predictions should you give? Write in the following order. First, winner of the tournament. Second, goal scorer of the tournament. Third, who will be given the golden ball of the tournament. And for each correct prediction of this, you will get 5 points. Also, write down which 4 teams you expect to reach the semi-finals. For each semi-finalist you guess, you will earn 3 points. So if someone guesses everything, you can earn a maximum of 27 points. I will also give my own suggestions at the end of the video, so let's see who has the best record. Let's start now. Group A. In this group I start directly with the team I expect to finish first, and that is the Netherlands. The reasons are that the good form of the team, the hunger for success after missing the last World Cup, and the good preparation. The Netherlands are on a streak 15 consecutive games without a loss, the last one being against the Czech Republic at the European Championship. The Netherlands have qualified ahead in the round of 16 in their last 10 appearances at the World Cup, so they rarely have difficulties in the group. Another interesting thing about the Tulips is that they have not lost a game in the group since 1994. The team I expect to be in the last place is Ecuador. The Ecuadorians seem to have a pretty talented team, but also the youngest. Of note, Ecuador have 1 loss only in the last 14 games, but only 5 wins in those games. Overall, you won't find some top names in the squad as I personally expect Ecuador to have the strong performances in the future, but not in this World Cup. Logically, there should be a serious battle for the second place with host Qatar in it. Most likely you will hear quite often that a host almost always pass the groups. Only South Africa didn't make it at 2010. Now for Qatar, the chances don't seem particularly great, considering also that literally all their players play in the domestic divisions, and I'm almost convinced that almost no one has heard of them. But the tournament hosts are always looked with a different light, so I expect that to be the case now too. With Senegal, it's clear that Mane will be the big absentee. Mane will travel with the squad, but not clear if he will play or when. Before the news of Sadio Mane injury for Bayern, I expected Senegal to even reach the quarterfinals, because this is probably the last major tournament where this gold generation for the team is at its peak. Let's not forget that they are African champions right now. Now I'm not so sure, not so convinced about the quarterfinals, but I still think that they will advance in the tournament, so that's my ranking in Group A. In Group B, I start with the team I think will finish second, and that's England. Yes, I know a prediction like this seems silly, but trust me, you'll see much sillier decisions from Southgate in some World Cup games for England. When I look at England's squad, I see about 13 or 14 very strong players, but the rest seem to be nowhere near the level of the first team players, or don't look in good enough shape or condition. Now in first place I'd put a team that most likely no man in the world would put, except the citizens of the country itself, and that's Iran. I guess some of you are already mocking me, but I will remind you that Iran finished third in a group with Spain, Portugal and Morocco at the last World Cup, just a point behind the 2 favorites, Spain and Portugal. Iran are also with a new coach, had a very good preparation. They have some pretty strong players like Taremi from Porto. They look extremely motivated because this is a chance for the Iranians to shine, considering how difficult life is in their own country because of the restrictions they have. So I think that they will succeed. They have a small chance, but they can do it. The US had pretty good performances from Mondial 19 to 2014 and often reached the round of 16 and quarterfinals. Now the United States has a lot of players playing in Europe and in the top leagues, but they also had some pretty good performances at the World Cup, but I don't expect this to be the memorable one for them. The main reason, frankly, is because their midfield doesn't seem to be of sufficient quality to me. Still, in the group I put them third, Wales I put them last. You can see their lineup, it's full of young players and almost all playing in English teams, but that are not part of England's elite. They are not in a great form either. Wales only qualified for the World Cup for the second time, with the first being in 1958. Basically, at every major forum, I have a few favorites that I expect to win the cup or to go far without having any bias towards them. Now, one of those teams is Argentina. In a video I made earlier related to some predictions for the tournament, which you can see above, right? I explained above and below what I expect from Argentina. I put Saudi Arabia last in the group, as most people like Qatar do with a far more World Cup experiences. It's a team full of players from local leagues. That's a plus maybe because they know each other very well and can be pretty think and then can synchronize very well, but Saudi Arabia in general isn't the most dangerous team at the World Cup, so I don't expect them to impress now either. They have only one qualifications to the round of 16 in the history, and that is in 1994. Favorites for the second place are Poland. At paper, everyone says Mexico have serious problems right now. The form is not good. They have injury problems, other internal problems, and etc. Even the Mexicans themselves are not very optimistic about the World Cup. But let's not forget that history has a role to play. Mexico is a team that has basically in 8 consecutive World Cup qualified from the groups and ended up in the round of 16 or reached the quarterfinals. On the other hand, we have Poland, who as usual will be relying on Lewandowski, who although 34 remains their big star, but the Poles have not been very impressive at this tournament in the last 30 years. At the last one, they didn't even qualify from the groups, even finishing last in the group with the likes of Colombia, Senegal and Japan. While logic points in Poland's favor, I'm going to trust the recent history and I will bet on Mexico to make it, and they will finish second in my opinion. So this is my ranking for the group. I guess you know about the champions curse. You can see what happened to France in 2002 when they were previously champions in 1998. The same goes for Italy in 2010, Spain in 2014 and Germany in 2018. All the current champions drop out in the groups at the next World Cup. I was tempted to put France third, not only because of this trend, but also because their midfield squad is not so great, of course, due to the lack of Pogba, and Kanté looks pretty unassuming, so to speak, compared to the other big teams in the tournament, of course. The way I look at it, they will rely heavily on the young talents from Real Madrid, Camavinga and Tchouaméni. Other midfielder is Rabiot, who is the most experienced of all the midfielders with 29 games, but that player has definitely not been the world class for the last couple of years. The goalkeeper position also doesn't look very stable to me. France, however, have already shown at Euro 21 that they are no longer as united as a team and are definitely not among my favorites to win this World Cup. Still, I'll put them second in this group. I put the Australian team in the last place because I'm not sure they are good enough to participate in this particular World Cup. Pretty lucky they pulled it off to qualify. Their star player from Verona, Hrustic, was called up, but it's unclear what form he'll be and when he'll play, considering he's been out with injury lately. I put Denmark in first place, a team from which I personally expected a lot more at the last Euros, and at the end they did make it to the semi-final then, and that was after what happened to Eriksen, their big star in the group. So Denmark have qualified from the group to the next stage in 4 of last 5 appearances at the World Cup, so I expect them to do so now. By the way, Denmark beat France in the last 2 games in the Nations League, and also they were in the same group with them in the last World Cup, and the Danes did not lose in the direct clash. It was 0-0. Obviously, third place remains for Tunisia. This team has a history of the tournament, although at the last one it failed to qualify for the round of 16, but the group was heavy. The form of the team is not bad at the moment. They hardly concede any goals apart from the last game against Brazil, which was a friendly, so I think it would come down to a battle for the second place with someone between France and Denmark. In Group E, we have the 2 clear favorites. It will be a complete madhouse if someone between Costa Rica or Japan manages to break through for the first or second place. Costa Rica already did it in 2014, but finishing first in a group with mind Uruguay, Italy and England, only former cup winners. Japan, on the other hand, had in the last World Cup made it to the round of 16 and gave the Belgians a hard time. However, let's turn our attention to the big teams in the group. Looking at Spain's squad, we have a pretty experienced defense. Even Eric Garcia, who is only 21, already played at Man City and now at Barcelona, has 18 games for the team. In the midfield, the quality is also serious. After all, since Enrique hasn't found a place for a midfielder like Thiago Alcantara, it means that they have big names. Spain's attack, however, is one of the weakest of the tournament if we compare it with the other big teams. The Germans have only 6 players who are not part of the domestic Bundesliga. After the exposure of the last World Cup and the general problems in the last 2 tournaments and the end of the Jogi Löw era, it seems that it's time for more serious tournament for the Germans, at least for me. Flick is not a random coach. It seems to me that the team is good enough, mixed of experienced players and a young talent. The team has balance, in my opinion. A lot of players can play different positions, so I have expectations for the Germans at this tournament despite the decent fluctuations, so I put them first in the group. I will put Costa Rica last. The Costa Ricans are not what they used to be. In no way do I expect them to do anything approaching what they did in 2014. While they are in a pretty good shape, the team's big stars have not been at their peak for a long time. Brian Ruiz and Campbell, for example, they are back in the squad, of course, but Ruiz is 37 right now. Japan is a team that definitely impresses, and if they weren't in such a tough group, they would certainly have a great chance to qualify. The Japanese are coming into the tournament in a good form and spirit. They have some pretty quality players and many who are playing in Europe's top leagues. However, I can't put them ahead of Spain. I think they have a reasonably good chance, but certainly less than Germany and Spain to qualify, so I leave them third in this group. In Group F, I'll put Croatia in the first place. The Croatians didn't make a memorable Euros last year amid their 2018 World Cup finish, but they keep bringing out new and emerging talent. Obviously, there's some pretty adequate work being done there. They come to the World Cup in pretty good shape, finishing first in their group in the Nations League, and with some serious competition in it. They have only 1 loss in their last 18 games. I think they are sufficiently prepared for this World Cup. I'll put Belgium, my Euro 21 favorite, in third place. In the group, the peak of this team has passed. All the stars who were in recent years major players in the big European teams are now gone, except of course for the phenomenal De Bruyne, who however is also at his best. Lukaku, who is also not at his best. Lukaku was injured, not even sure if he will play. Hazard hasn't been himself for years. We also have Tielemans, who doesn't look fit, so I think the Red Devils will fail this time. In second place, I put Morocco, who have a new coach, and Ziyech is back in the squad after they had a falling out with the previous coach and he wouldn't take it. The Moroccans exposed themselves at the last World Cup, but I expect them to do well now. Let's not forget that some of the world's greatest talents are from Moroccan descent. You often see them in the French national team. Morocco has just 2 losses in their last 39 games, which I think is indicative of their form. A huge number of their players play in Europe's top 5 leagues. If they manage to qualify, it will be only their second time further forward than the groups. I put Canada last, not because I expect them to perform badly, but because there's no one else to put. The Canadians can give any team in the group a fight, even though they are only their second World Cup. Now almost all of their players except Alphonso Davies play in the local leagues and some in the MLS, but their roster is pretty young. Group G. Here are Brazil, who are the bookies' favorite, as well as the overwhelming favorite. I personally don't think their squad is very great, at least compared to the squads from the previous World Cups. I mean, when they dominated tournaments and became champions in the last century mainly, and started this one. But on the other hand, it looks pretty balanced, especially compared to the other top teams in the tournament. I put Switzerland in the last place. I know the Swiss are consistent at the big tournaments, but they seem a lot more unstable to me now. In recent years, it's mainly Xhaka and Shaqiri leading the team. Xhaka is in form, but Shaqiri is not. He's playing in the MLS right now and he is in the twilight of his career. Their attack will still be led by Mbo and Zaferovic. The Cameroonians have players like Onana in goal, Choupo-Moting up front, and Anguissa in the midfield, who has been brilliant for the Flying Napoli in Serie A. The Cameroonians have only 1 qualifications to the round of 16 in the history, and that was in 1990, so I put them third and Serbia second. The Serbians actually have put together a great squad, and this time I think that they will get it back on Switzerland. They have hardly forgotten their last game at the World Cup in 2018. Then they were in the same group also with Brazil, and only Costa Rica in the place of Cameroon now. The Serbians are in pretty good form too. They are last qualified from the groups in the round of 16 in 1998, so if they do it now again, it will be their first time in this century. A lot of people have high expectations for Serbia at this tournament. And the last group, I'll put Uruguayans first. They have the history in the tournament, of course, two-time cup winners. Barely will you see them fail to qualify from the groups at the World Cup. It's only happened once in their last 6 appearances. The 35-year-old veterans Luis Suarez and Cavani lead the team to the World Cup for the last time for them, and Nunez is also here, but most of all Federico Valverde, who is absolute class for the Real Madrid squad right now. So Uruguay this year have 7 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss, with the draw and the loss being in friendlies. You can say they are in good shape and prepared for the World Cup. In the last place I put Ghana, team who got to the World Cup a bit lucky with 1 goal. It was like the fault of the goalkeeper. Ghana history at the World Cups is mainly from the 2006, 2010, 2014 World Cup. They have not been to the World Cup before, and they performed quite well at these 3 World Cups, reaching the round of 16 in the first one and the quarterfinals in the second one. Now, however, I don't find them that impressive, although they are by no means to be underestimated and have some very familiar names in the squad. For Portugal, it's been clear for a while now that Jota will miss the World Cup, which is a blow for the team. But the more interesting part is what role will play Ronaldo, which this season will definitely be one of his favorite of his career. I put the Portuguese second because they rarely finish first in World Cup group, and I honestly don't expect them to make an impressive tournament, but their squad is really great. For me, it's in the top 3 as individuals to say at least. South Korea are a pretty solid team. The 4th place in the 2002 World Cup, when they were one of the hosts, remain their pride, of course. They also had a round of 16 finish in 2010. At the last World Cup, they dethroned the current champion Germany to send them to the 4th place in the group. Of course, the problem here is that South Korea may not be relying on Son, who will eventually be picked in the squad, but it's debatable if he will play or when. That changes the team situation a lot. Without him, their attack becomes much weaker. I was hesitant to put them in the last place for that reason, but I think they have a very slightly better chance than Ghana. Now that I've done a ranking of all the groups, I'm very quickly going through the simulator to the final versus the pairs that formed the round of 16. I'm not going to go into any details, as most likely most of these matches won't even take place. From the first couple, Netherlands versus England, it will be 50-50 here. If it happens, I have to put a bit more faith in Van Gaal, so I pick Netherlands. Of Argentina and France, I pick Argentina, my favorite at the tournament. Iran versus Senegal, that's almost impossible to happen, but if it does, I'll pick Senegal because Mane will be probably sufficiently recovered by that time of the tournament, and Senegal are pretty experienced in tournamental games. Of Denmark and Mexico, Denmark is a must. Mexico, if they even make it to the round of 16, are unlikely to have the strength for more. Germany versus Morocco, it's an easy choice here. The Germans, though they saw a lot of troubles, of course, against Algeria in the round of 16 in the 2014 World Cup when they became champions. Brazil versus Portugal, this is a match for the history. If it happens, I will look forward to it. It will be something great because the stars in the teams, and also historically for these two countries. Well, I will pick Brazil though, even though the forces are pretty even. Spain and Croatia will be a tough choice. However, as one of my 3 favorites, I will pick against Spain, although I have a high expectation from Croatia as well. Uruguay versus Serbia, I literally have no idea here. I'll pick Uruguay just for the history, nothing more. Now the quarterfinals pairings have been formed after my choices. Netherlands and Argentina played already in 2014 in the semi-final, when the Argentinians managed to prevail. Anything can happen here in this match, of course, but I'll still bet on Argentina. The next match, Germany-Brazil, I probably don't need to recap the history between these two teams in the century. I know most people would pick Brazil now, but I'll go with the Germans. The quarterfinal between Denmark and Senegal, what a success that would be for both teams, and why not to see the first African team in a semi-final if this happens. I mean, it's clear that Senegal have a pretty good chance of such success if their opponents are in fact Iran and Denmark in the next phase, so I'd go with them in this particular match, even though it's a 50-50 against Denmark, of course. In the last pair, Spain versus Uruguay, I would pick the Spanish. Uruguay road should be over till now. Here I ranked the 3 of my favorites in the semifinals, which I didn't plan it based on the streams, but it worked out that way. Argentina versus Germany, another great clash. I expect Argentina to take it back to Germany this time for the 2014 final and beat them somehow in the other semi-final. Of course, the Senegal tale must end, so the final will be Argentina and Spain. Absolutely anything is possible in such a final, but I'm still backing Argentina all the way. It's not that I'm a big fan of theirs, it's quite the opposite actually, but I just have a feeling that they are going to make a very strong World Cup now. Now, as a conclusion, I will share with you all my predictions before the start of the World Cup: group rankings predictions, long-term predictions, specific predictions, and etc. Here they are, very quickly, without much detail. I'm still holding on to 3 of my predictions from the last few weeks ago, despite my nice problems with Senegal. The Iran prediction is worth it to try at 8 odds with England to qualify, and Iran being in first place is 17 odds. With Switzerland to finish last, I also think is worth it at the odds of 5. A combo slip based on my predictions from earlier about the groups as to which 2 teams will qualify from 2 particular groups. Musiala for the best young player of the tournament. If Germany go far, I believe he will be a key to that, and he is in top form for Bayern at the moment. By the way, there are some very interesting markets in Betano, and I fancied a few bets from there. To have at least 4 goals directly from a free kick, we have some great direct free kick takers at this World Cup, so it seems easy for me to get that out. Over 5.5 own goals. A few bets on individual players that caught my eye as well. You can see them in the picture. At the end of this video, I'll remind you to comment a few personal picks, and if you are part of the 3 top scorers, you get a free VIP subscription. Now I'm going to make the predictions by myself against the condition to see how many points I can collect. First, winner of the tournament, Argentina. Then goal scorer of the tournament, Neymar. Golden Ball player of the tournament, Lionel Messi. Semi-finalists, as we have to go with the streams, if my favorite Argentina, Germany and Spain reach the semi-finals, relative to the possibilities for the 4th semi-finalist, the most realistic one is England. That concludes the video. Predictions are yet to be made for almost all the group matches, so follow us and keep an eye on the channel. After the end of the groups, predictions will be made again for the knockout phase. For now, bye bye from me.